more important than happy birthday is Jay is a professional at lifting up people around him in every way you can think of what lift up means.
Dave Palumbo here for a very special tribute, 50th birthday to Jay Cutler, 4-time Mr. Olympia. I have a very special panel waiting to discuss the life and times of Jay Cutler. Welcome, guys. Chris Aceto, manager Matt Daniels, and Dave Bourlet, 3 people who probably know Jay Cutler better than anyone else in this world.
Thanks for having me.
I asked Chris, I said, Chris called me up. He said, you know, it's going to be Jay's 50th birthday this coming Thursday. And I said, oh, really? We should do a show. And I said, who do you think we should get for the show to talk about Jay? And what did you say, Chris, to me?
Well, I said Dave and manager Matt, and I just learned that Matt had a last name other than, I just learned that Daniels, because we were talking about names and spelling before the show started. Yeah. But I figured the people, you know, 2 people who been around Jay a long time, but also, you know, knowing Jay, that he would let his guard down with. You know?
Good guess.
Yeah, good guess.
I mean, there's other people, of course. You could have, you know, the thing with Jay, you could have 50 people on a panel to, you know, chime in. And that's what originally I told Dave is that it's his 50th birthday. I said, God, we could get comments from endless everyone, you know, because Jay is, you know, a gravity force, because people, you know, they call Jay and ask for advice, whether it be training advice, business advice, you guys know, relationship advice. It just never ends, right?
Never ends.
I wanted the behind the scenes Jay Cutler. I didn't want the guys who hang out with him at shows and go on guest posing jobs with him. I wanted the people like who work with him on a regular basis. And I mean, Matt's in his house right now. Hopefully Jay doesn't come home while we're doing this. And,
no, and Dave, I'm in the office, not the house.
Oh, okay. Is the office detached from the house?
No, it's about 15 miles away.
Oh, I didn't know he had a separate office now.
Yeah, separate office.
Yeah, the warehouse.
So, what did he have to do? Duplicate all his Sandows so he could have them in both places, his house
and
the office?
What we did was we started a podcast, and the first like 5 were in his house. But every time we would do the podcast, we'd have to set everything up and tear it down because we're not going to leave all these wires and stuff around. So I said, we got to find a way to get this out of here. But the setting looks so good. Sure. So we took a picture of his wall and got a screen print. So this wall next to me is just a big graphic.
Oh, I see. That's crazy. Wow.
Dave, would not the wires
genius?
The wires would drive Jay crazy, right?
Oh my God. Yes. He's a little OCD. A little bit.
Chris, since you know Jay the longest from when he was a teenager, why don't you tell the story about how you first met Jay and, you know, how that relationship started? Obviously, you were his coach back when he was a teenager, but how did that whole relationship start?
It's funny. Eduardo Correa just texted me like before we started about, you know, saying, Chris, you say no to a lot of people. And I said, you know, I've always said no. And so Jay called me, and he got my number from Luzwick of American Muscle. And Jay called me, and he explained methodically and with the same cadence, the way he speaks today, and the same demeanor with the way the same as he speaks today is, my name is Jay Cutler. I live in Spencer, Massachusetts. Some people have told me that, you know, I have potential. They gave me a number. I'm not sure if I have that much potential, but, you know, I wanted to pursue it and give it a shot. And if I'm going to give it a shot, I want to do it 100%. And if I'm going to do it 100%, I want to do it the right way. You know, the whole spiel that Jay does with everything. So I was like, you know, all right, yeah, call me next Tuesday. And just to get him off the phone. And like, I was in my office, and like
Chris,
Tuesday
you're like a girl. Chris knows, like, let me play hard. If I play hard to get, then I'll see who's really serious, you know?
Yeah, well, I guess maybe I was testing him. And so the Tuesday came, and he called, and he's like, it's Jay Cutler. And I said, who? He said, you told me to call you, you know, on Tuesday. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's impressive. You know, I just thought that was impressive for someone who's 18, you know? And just the way he talked on the phone, I was not talking to, you know, a kid. So, I mean, he was smart then at 18. Jay was as smart at 18 as he is now. What he just lacked that he has now is the experience, the life experience. So, but he was very, very smart. And I told him I was going down to a Luther Vandross concert in Worcester, and I said I'm coming in like a couple days. Come and meet me. And I met him, and we're off to the races. I mean, Jay is, as you know, Dave, and I mean all you guys is Matt. That he's a personable and likable guy. So I met him, and I liked him from the get-go.
And what did you think his potential was as a bodybuilder at that point?
Well, he'll tell you that. Like I went to the gym with him, and I trained with him, and in my mind I thought, okay, big kid. You get confused. Because I was 20. Let's see, he's 18. I was 24. But I've been training forever, and I've already been out in California since I was 19, and trained with the who's who of who's who. So I assumed, like, okay, we'll go to the gym, and he knew what he was doing, but not really at all. He just was 18 and just getting going. So the body was reflective of someone who should know more. And then I wrote a diet for him, and he followed it, religiously, like an accountant. Not religiously.
Do you remember what the diet was?
What's that?
What was the diet? Do you remember? How many meals?
Had like 7 meals. He knows it to a T. Had like ground beef, bagels, pasta. He regurgitates it to a T. But he told me, I went to see him like a month later, and I was just really surprised. I was like, wow, that was quick. And Grant, this is natural. This is not some kid 18, like they are today on 15 tests and, all 9 yards. And I saw him a month later, and I thought, like, wow, there's a lot here. And, he had that silly width. He had Frankenstein width. Looking back at it now, he had Frankenstein width to his shoulders not Frankenstein. Who's from the Munsters? The grandfather.
Lurch.
No, the one with the flat head. It's not Lurch. For many months, anyways. The monster.
That's it.
He had the width, at 18, so he had to fill that in, and he was always funny from 18 years old, because he would, and he was realistic, because he'd do a side chest, and I'd say, wow, look, great side chest. He said, yeah, but look at me from the front, flat as a pancake, because, to have full pecs, standing relaxed, it's hard when you wide. And he always used to say, even from like 18, he says, I got to fill in those pecs,
Interesting. Dave, why don't you tell us how you first met Jay? Because I know you were out in California when you bumped into him, right?
Yeah. So actually, the first time, and by the way, that diet that Chris gave him, he still has that piece of paper, that he had put on the fridge. We actually saw it at his mom's house, and we took a picture of it one time. I remember.
I need it for the Hall of Fame, Chris.
His mother has the grocery list.
It's like
he was buying his food.
Dave
Palumbo, there's a grocery list Jay sent me once. It's like, Mom, when you go to the grocery store, get me like 8 pounds of chicken, like 450 eggs, like 45 pounds of potatoes. And she kept that. And he snapshotted it, took a picture with his iPhone and sent it to me.
Yeah. So I actually met Jay for the first time in 2003 at the Arnold Classic. Actually, you know what? The 2002 Arnold Classic. And it was right before, it was actually at lunch at the time. It was at the DoubleTree. Remember when they were at the DoubleTree? All the Arnold.
Yep.
And a common friend of mine, actually, of ours, actually introduced me to him, and it was quick. He was having lunch with Carrie at a tiny table, and I got introduced to him. And then after that, I told him I was disappointed that he wasn't doing the Olympia in 2002 because I thought he couldn't really take it, And I reached out to him via email, and I was at the time I was with Max Muscle, and I knew he was wearing a lot of the Max Muscle clothing in his videos and stuff. And I told him, listen, I work for the company. I would love to send you some clothing if you want to wear it in your videos or whatever. And so we kind of became friends that way. And then eventually he told me, "Oh, I'm coming to California to do a string of photo shoot at the Metrics gym, and I'll be there for like 4 or 5 days. So I'll be busy during the day, but if you have anything to do at night, maybe we can grab lunch or dinner at somewhere close." So that's kind of how we became friends. We hung out almost every night that night. I would just pick him up at night after his hotel, and we would go eat at Mimi's Cafe, which he used to love, Mimi's Cafe. And we kind of became friends like that. And I remember the first time I picked him up at the hotel, I was just, Chris is talking about his width, and I was so shocked to actually see him in person up close. He was like a wall. It was crazy. He was wearing those big 4X t-shirt. And I was so nervous. I remember the first time I actually went to go eat with him because I felt like I had to be really interesting. I was like, okay. It was like kind of like a date,
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, if I'm not interesting, you'll never want to see me again. But once you get to hang out with Jay, and that's what people don't really understand because they don't know him personally, you kind of forget who he is after a while. You don't see him as Jay Cutler, the bodybuilding champion. He's just a regular guy. He talks about girls.
He's not a guy. He's a kid, dude. He's a kid.
Yeah, and that's really. I always felt like people could benefit more from knowing him personally because, like Chris said, he's so funny and he's got a great sense of humor, but he didn't actually show it until later on in his career.
Yeah.
Today he does. He's doing all these skits on those commercials. And that's really how he is on a daily. Yeah. But he wasn't showing that to people before. He was so serious and so in the zone all the time. People thought he was kind of like boring and robotic, but he was not like that at all. It was just, I don't know why. He kind of just, he had to get out of his shell. And I think he did that great over the years.
Arian was the same way. It was like the Bjorn Borg, phenomenon. Like, let me just be like a stone face so no one can really read my emotions, type of thing.
No, because
I don't know why. Yeah.
Because Dave, he was in that because as you got to hang out with him outside, but otherwise he was in that box of, trying to be the best, and everything to him outside of eating and training was technically a distraction. Everything.
Yeah, he was living in a bubble, and a lot of time, and especially at the beginning when I first started, becoming friends with him, about 12 to 14 weeks before every Olympia, I would never hear from him again. So much so that I was like, man, maybe I said something wrong. Maybe I pissed him off or something. And one time I brought it up and I said, did I do something to piss you off? And he says, no, why? Why are you saying that? I said, I never hear from you. Like, Pastor Sir, he said, that's just the way it is. I just cut completely everyone out. I don't want to deal with bullshit. I don't want to deal with people's problems. And he was in his zone, for a good 12 to 14 weeks before the show. That's just the way he was.
It's impossible to make, if you're really into your prep and doing it the right way, it's impossible to make small talk with people. It's the most annoying thing of all time when you're dieting for a big competition to have to make small talk with people. It's just, but yet when you're not doing that, if you're social like he is, and I know I am, I love to talk to people, but when you're dieting, you don't want to talk to anyone. I don't even know what it is. It's like something your brain goes like, becomes defunct or something like that,
Yeah, that's true.
Matt, how'd you meet Jay for the first time?
I met Jay in 2000 at the Southern States. My little brother and I went down there to see him and Ronnie, and there's a bunch of other people guest posing, and we just kind of hit it off. I just sat there and was bullshitting with him at the booth, which he does with a lot of people still to this day. Yeah. He'll just strike up conversations with them. He ended up giving me his email address because this was way before Facebook or Instagram or even text messaging. We all had flip phones back then. He gave me his email address. He's like, stay in contact with me. And we email from time to time. And I had a career in the music industry at the time. So I was traveling around the world, and here and there, schedules would align, whether he was guest posing in California or New York or wherever he was. And we just built a relationship over the years to where in 2007, I remembered I just came back from a tour and I get a call from him. It was a week of the Olympia. And he said, what are you doing this week? I'm like, I'm staying home. I'm not going anywhere. And he said, I need you to fly to Vegas tomorrow. I'm like, what? What do you mean? And at the time, I remember Dave was still running Max Muscle. He's like, Dave can't get out here till Thursday. Kerry can't get off work. Can you come help me? And I'm thinking, okay. So I flew out there, and I think that was a 1 year Chris, I don't think you came that year, did you?
No, 07, no.
07. So that week, I lived with Jay that whole week, and we just kind of, ever since then, we built a friendship to where I started booking him at appearances here and there when I could. And in 2014, I came on full steam in the fitness industry, and we've just been traveling the world since.
But for those people who don't know who Manager Matt is, as he's known in our industry, Matt can get anything you want done. If you need something booked, or you need a certain type of look of a bodybuilder, or male, female, alien, no matter what you need, you just call Matt. He will facilitate it in some capacity. I don't even know what your magical skills are, but you have a very good rapport with people. You seem to be able to extract the right information out of the right people.
Well, thank you. I do my best.
And Jay saw that same skill level in you. That's why he had you come out and help him out. So what do you actually do for Jay now on a regular basis, business wise? Podcast?
You know what it is? Jay and I have a podcast together, the Cutler Cast. I'm more of a buffer for him. You know, Jay, any decisions that are ever made for him, he makes himself. There's nobody else is involved. I mean, he'll get people's opinions. I'm more of the point of contact, especially for traveling. Whenever he travels, for the most part, I travel with him. You don't want to have direct access to someone always. And it's easier for him to have me facilitate it and go through to see if things are legit or if they're not legit. Because we all know this. A lot of times things come at you and he doesn't have much free time. And the last thing he wants to do is be fielding this stuff to see if it's legit or not, whether it's an appearance or a contract or anything.
Have you found a lot of people trying to just, attach themselves to Jay, and have you had to weed out a lot of crap that over the years?
He kind of does that himself. I don't really think you need. I mean, yes and no, but he's been around long enough. Jay knows who the good people are and the people are to, not let attach themselves to you.
Yeah. Dave, you do a lot of filming with Jay. You've been doing it for years, and a lot of the stuff that's online about Jay is stuff that you've done. I always wondered, and I asked this to Jay once before, and I wanted to just see what your take on it. I'll tell you what Jay told me, but I'll tell you what I want your take, because you guys have a closer relationship than I do with Jay. But I said, Jay, you've made so much money over the years with real estate and all your businesses and everything like that. Obviously, you probably don't even need to make more money at this point. Why do you still work your butt off every single day? Bodybuilding, podcasts, supplement company. He doesn't need to do that, but yet he does it, and he works like, he has no money in the bank. That's how hard this guy works every single day. Why do you think he does? I'll ask all you guys. I'll go around the horn. What do you think, Dave?
Because he always says busted, right, Chris? He's just a driven individual. I don't think he's ever going to retire. It's not about the money for him at this point, because he could probably retire today. Right. He's just a driven individual, and he's always putting himself into new challenges. He always wants to come up with new challenges, new plans. I don't think. I mean, his dad worked forever. I mean, his dad died recently, but he was even in his 90s, I think. And I think he's got the same exact work ethic than his dad. And I don't think he's ever going to stop, to be honest with you. He's happy doing what he does, and he's actually really proud to have stayed so relevant after being retired. He's just as popular now as he ever was before. I don't think it's going to stop. He's just, but he really enjoys his life. He really enjoys what he does, and he's so grateful also for all the people that he has met. Because what's really special about Jay is that not only he's got this drive and this work ethic, but he was very smart and lucky also to have met certain people, he told me, in his life who brought him where he's at today. So obviously when he met Chris, when he first started, that was the first thing. Then he met Ed Connors, and he met so many people, investors later on, or people smart with money. And that's why he's always eager to learn from people that can teach him. And he's good about picking people like that in his life. And obviously it's a winning formula for him.
Matt, would you agree with that, or what do you think? Why do you think Jay is still so involved and working so hard every day?
I think he would go crazy if he wasn't.
Yeah.
Every morning I wake up at 6 in the morning, I'm already getting a text from him. What do we have to do today? What about this? What about this for next week, next month? If he had nothing to do, I think he would go crazy. He loves the fans. He loves working. Like Dave said, his dad, I believe, worked up until he was like 89 years old every day as a farmer. And he has that in him that he's going to do the same thing. He's never going to slow down. And there's times where I even have conversations with him. I'll say, hey, we got a lot on our plate now. We can't add more. And he's like, nope, we're going to add more. And I said, okay. But I wish a lot of the younger guys nowadays would pay attention to the blueprint that he put out there. Just never get complacent where you're at and always be looking to advance, whether it's your physique, if you're training or business, or realizing that one day you're going to step away from the stage. And Jay's one of those guys that is more successful after he retired than he was while he was competing, even though he was wildly successful while he's competing. So I don't ever see him slowing down. And yeah, I just don't see him slowing down anytime soon.
No.
Chris?
Well, it's funny. Jay reminds me of like Tony Bennett. You know, Tony Bennett was going all the way to the right, the last breath. I think with Jay, you know, the bigger picture is like the legacy. You know, he's I mean, I don't think he's like trying to like leave this impression on other people that he created like a legacy, but you know, Jay is driven to be the best, in starting with bodybuilding, of course. But, you know, bodybuilding for him was, you know, winning the Olympia 4 times, winning the Arnold 3 times, doing the impossible, really, you know, like a Coleman, you know, who he dethroned, which is, you know, and he came back. I mean, the career is so unbelievable on the stage. You know, he was 15th in the first Olympia. You know, in Jay's, you know, when I look at Jay, there's other aspects of bodybuilding. The supplements are a part of bodybuilding. They blend with his career. It's just an extension of, you know, him, the bodybuilder. You know, what he does with Manager Matt every week, all the videos that he did with Dave Bourlet. I mean, nobody was doing that. And remember, Jay used to put out these DVDs. No one was doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So all of it is, you know, an extension of being the best in the sport. And he's trying to, you know, he's not trying, but I look at it as everything that he's doing is just an extension of trying to be the best. So if he's going to start a supplement company, you know, he wants it to be the best. And if he's going to do a podcast, it's just not going to be a podcast that's, you know, I'm sure people would love to hear him and Matt just sit down, or him and Dave Bourlet, or him and you, Dave Palumbo, sit down and just wing it. And which I'm sure he does week to week wing it. But there's a lot of thought that goes into, you know, what are we going to do next with this podcast? How are we going to make it better? And, you know, to touch on what these guys said is, you know, people love their fans because it's wonderful to be loved, right? When you're a bodybuilder or a pop star or, you know, in the public eye, it's wonderful to have fans. It just, you know, it's exciting. It makes you feel good. It makes you feel like successful, or it makes you feel like, you know, like a star. But Jay loves his fans back. It's bizarre. It's ridiculous, right? I mean, you guys probably have infinitesimal amount of stories and he knows people like by name, right? They might come crazy. Back to this guy, you know, his memory. Only Donald Trump claims to have a better memory than Jay. You know what? Jay can remember numbers and names, and he's also, you know, to add outside of the bodybuilding, he's a loyal person in terms of a friend, even if you don't consider him a friend. And he could say, oh yeah, he's in, this is Dave, this is Jay, right guys? Oh yeah, Dave's down there, and he'll get it right. Cape Coral, I get it wrong. I still get it wrong. He's down there in Cape Coral, Florida. He's down there. He's got, you know, 3 kids. His wife, she won I think she won the USA, and, you know, she competed Amanda. The details is just ridiculous, right? And he can do it for so many
photographical memory. He has a photographical memory. We'll be traveling somewhere. We can be in Sweden, and someone will be standing in line, and he'll be like, "That's so and so," and I met them 10 years ago at FIBO. I'm like, "How do you know that?" And they'll walk up and they'll go, "Hey, here's a picture of me. I was 16. I'm 26 now, and here's when I met you." And he'd look at me. I'm like, "How do you know this?" He just never forgets anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a gift. I wish I had that photographic memory. I'm good at explaining things, but I can't remember anything, yeah, unless it's important to me, But it is. But that's part of his charm, I think, and that's why the fans loved him so much, because he can connect with people, and he does have details that he remembers, and so it makes it look like he's interested in these people, because he has that connection and that ability to connect with people. And that's what makes him so successful, I think, in business. Because I know plenty of bodybuilders that were great bodybuilders, but they were terrible businessmen, right? I mean, they probably could have made oodles of money if they had just had the personality. A lot of people thought Ronnie Coleman would never be a good businessman, because he comes off as country, but he's super smart, and he's very personable with the fans, and that's why he's been so successful.
Right. Jay, it's not an act either. Like,
thank you for pointing that out. Thank you for pointing that out. Go ahead.
He truly cares. Like, he'll see someone in line getting, standing up next to see him, and he can tell they're nervous. And he'll sit down. Hey, what's your name? Man, you look like, how long you been training for? And he'll give them a compliment. He'll calm their nerve. And he really wants to connect with people. And over time, over him doing this for the last 20 years, it's made him it kind of sets him apart from everyone else.
30 years.
He just truly cares. Yeah, 30 years. He truly cares about his fans. It's not a front. And I wish more people really understood how much he cares and how much he gives back.
I think now that he's more personable and he's out there more because he's not competing, I think people are getting a better understanding of who he is. Like you said, he had that kind of like game face on for so many years because he was trying to beat Coleman. And that takes me to the next, topic I wanted to bring up. What do you think was his best look ever? What year and why? Let's go to Aceto first, since Chris was working with him.
It's hard to say. I always think the earlier years, because the earlier years, everyone was better. Like Coleman, people can say what they want about 03 Coleman. The 98 Coleman would obliterate the 2003, whatever it was, the bigger Coleman, just the level of detail, the smaller waist. And Jay always says that one of the best of millions of lines from Jay is we were all better, smaller. Wheeler, you know what I mean? People cross the line and they get too big. I've often thought like one of those Arnolds, I think it was the second one, or the Ironman.
Yeah.
When his weight was crazy big. But then sometimes I step back and I think like, okay, who are you standing next to? And, it's hard, like in 2001, you could maybe make the argument for 2001 because it's who you're standing next to some degree. And it's hard to stand next to Ronnie Coleman. I don't think anyone, when Coleman was youthful, anyone at any time really could to a large degree, so it's, I'd say the earlier years, his muscle had a super rugged look and the back was full, from like, he had the crazy Christmas tree earlier in his career.
Right.
So.
What do you think, Dave Bourlet?
Yeah, I think 01 Olympia stands out in my memory. 03 Ironman, when he came back after not competing that year, was like fantastic. I actually saw him in person that year. The second Arnold, he was huge. I think it was his heaviest. I think he said he was like 276 at that show. Wow. 273. Yeah. The 03 Arnold. And of course 09, when he came back and beat everybody after losing. To me, that was a great year. So those years, those contests.
Matt?
I think the 01 Olympia, because like Chris said, the guys just got so big, and I think that was the most streamlined look there, or the 03 Ironman. You hear, like, even we have Milos on the podcast, he always talks about that 03 Ironman, how crazy Jay looked in person, the conditioning, it was just spot on. But I think as he got later, obviously 09, he looked amazing, but I think the guys just got so big that it just took away from that look that he had. So I would go with the 01 Olympia.
Funny, Matt, is Milos was like, I didn't really know him that well. He was like 2 rows ahead of me at the prejudging at that Ironman, and Jay was so big, like he looked like he was going to tip over, and because he was so wide, and he like he anyways, and I Milos like looked back and I said, is he in shape? Because he just looked too big to be in shape. And Milos like said, you lost your mind, and when I saw, like I still didn't realize it till I saw pictures after the show, right after the show.
Yeah.
Wow.
What about you, Dave? What do you think?
I struggle over this because in 01, a lot of people felt he beat Ronnie Coleman. He probably beat him certainly at the prejudging, and he was so dry and so shrink wrapped. He wasn't his biggest. But he was, no. I think he was his best in 01. In terms of a combination of conditioning and that youthful look he had to his body, and his waist was like really, really small for him. And I really liked the 01 look. When he came back and made that comeback, what was it, 09, when he rerun the title, he was probably his physique looked the most mature. Like he had detail and stuff like that, but one leg was, a little bigger than the other. And he had you could tell he was starting to get to the end of his career. So I just think that fresh, like Chris said, when you're younger, you always have a nicer, cleaner look. I think that 01 look was probably his best look. But the couple years after that, he was pretty close to that. I mean, it wasn't like he wasn't off. It was just that look, for some reason, he just peaked himself perfectly on that day. And that's why I think Chris almost had a nervous breakdown that he didn't win that Olympia.
I did have a nervous breakdown. Well, that was that was a 2-day show.
Yeah,
and that was the first 2-day Olympia, and the wisdom of Jay after prejudging, Dave, you can't make this stuff up. You guys know him so well. After prejudging, he said, if this is a 1-day show, I win for sure. And of course I'm thinking like, what are you talking about? So why wouldn't you win on a 2-day show? He said, a lot can happen in 2 days. And I'm like, you're going to come in. He said, no, a lot behind the scenes is what he implied, He said, I don't think they're going to give it to me.
Oh, geez.
Well, though him not winning the Olympia that year, I think it helped build the legend because he was battling the best of all time, and it built up more and more, and his fan base grew like crazy because he was just right there. Me and him have had this conversation before, like, what would have happened if you'd won the 01 Olympia? Would Ronnie have came back in 02? And you know what I mean? Who knows what the trajectory would have been?
Yeah. What do you think would have happened, Chris? Just since we're speculating anyway.
I think Jake told me once that had I won that one, I would have won 10. Because,
possible.
He mentioned, which is true, when you win the title, it changes your mindset to a large degree, good and bad, right? And then also, I don't think he's a believer of momentum, but I think what he said is, he could do with his physique what he wanted to do. Because after there was a certain time where it's like, oh gosh, he didn't win again. And then trying to be with all good intentions, people like judges, like people you have respect for, say, you know what, this is how you got to bring it in. And you know what I mean? And it's not questioning yourself, but you start to weigh that, like, really, do I need to, you got to go back to this type of conditioning or that fullness or this or that, where it's like, okay, if I'm the winner, I can just do whatever the hell I want,
I think once you become the winner, you're the standard now. So now the judges are trying to see, can someone beat Jay? So if Ronnie comes back, the next year and Jay comes back great, they're not going to let Ronnie beat him, and I think that's just the way, it's been, historically with the Olympia, right? The champ always has the benefit of the doubt, Jay was younger. I think you're right. I think Jay would have won 10 Olympias probably if he would have won that 01 for sure. Or at least he probably would have won 8, at least.
Yeah.
What do you think is going to be Jay? Like when people think about Jay Cutler, 20 years from now, what do you think he'll be remembered most for? We'll go to Matt first on this one.
I think people are gonna, as he keeps putting out more and more content and he keeps traveling still, more and more people are getting to know him and not just the bodybuilder. And I think he's going to be right there next to Arnold as far as the respect of just being loved by the bodybuilding community, not just bodybuilding, the fitness community as a whole, whether it's powerlifters or strongman or anyone that has any type of involvement with fitness. I think he's going to be right there next to Arnold as right at the top. As far as respect.
Have you met anyone with more integrity?
No.
Dave, Bourlet, have you met anyone more honest?
No, and the thing with Jay is that I agree with Matt. I think past Arnold, you know, when you think bodybuilding, you think Jay, and the reason why I say that is because not only because of what he accomplished, but also he commands a lot of respect. You know, I've seen him backstage. I've seen him, you know, whenever he goes, whenever he speaks, whoever is around all stop talking to listen to what he has to say, and he commands the room. And that's just the way it is with Jay. People really want to hear what he has to say. They really pay attention to when he talks, and you don't see that every day. And that's great with him.
He also respects people, and he gives them time. Like if you go to a show, let's say you're at the Jay Cutler Classic and you're competing, he walks around and he shakes every competitor's hand. He introduces himself, not assuming you know who he is. He gives you that little bit of respect that even though he's this big iconic name, it doesn't matter. He'll still come and give you a little bit of his time and make you feel special about yourself. And very few people do that.
You know, and I wanted to bring up two things, but I want to bring up one story because the first time I met Jay, I'd obviously read about him in the magazines. I had won the 95 Junior Nationals heavyweight championship, and Willie Stalling, who was the light heavyweight, had beat me in the overall. And that was, I think, I probably was the biggest guy who ever competed in like a junior national show. It was like 258 or something like that. And then so 96 comes around and I'm going to do the nationals, right? You know, and Jay's all hyped up. You know, he had won that Excalibur out in California a few years before. You know, I think he was 24 years old because I was 28. And he was like him and Tom Prince, they were billing those guys as the battle for that title. And, you know, when I saw Chris and Jay backstage, I was like, oh, you know, he's big, but, you know, he's really not that hard. And, you know, I think I can beat him. You know, you got to have that mindset. You cannot go out on stage, you know, at that level. But you could tell structurally, I knew this guy was going to be really good in the future. I knew he was young still. And he actually, a lot of people forget, Jay did not win the 96 Nationals overall title. He only won the heavyweight class. And ironically enough, Willie Stalling is the guy who beat him for the overall. He won the light heavyweight class. And, you know, a lot of people wrote Jay off as like, he's okay, but he's overhyped. He's not going to be a great, you know, champion. And he obviously didn't listen to that because he proved everyone wrong. And I have to believe when he looks back over all the years, thinking back to that show, he must say, man, I proved everyone wrong. I mean, Chris, was that his mindset that he really wanted to prove people wrong?
When you said people wrote him off, first thing that came to my head is, well, he didn't write himself off.
Yeah.
And, you know, so people can say what they want about him. You know, Jay is to some degree Teflon because he understands which a lot of people don't understand is people have opinions of you and they don't matter. People's opinions of you do not matter. What matters is, you know, what you do and what you accomplish and the work you put in. And I think that encompasses who Jay is his hard work, what he's accomplished. And, you know, I don't think he's, you know, some people say that, you know, the haters and, you know, that motivates him. It's funny because I can't imagine Jay being motivated by haters. You know, he's motivated, you know, you can be pushed along by negativity or you can be.
We lost Chris there for a second.
You can be pushed along by negativity or you can be pulled along by your own, you know, vision and dreams. And I think that's, you know, that's a distinction that Jay has is, you know, he's successful because of his own vision and, you know, his dreams and blocking out or not even caring about people's opinions.
Yeah, he doesn't care at all. Like if someone says something negative,
that's him in Santa Claus.
Oh God.
Hey, Matt, I have a question for Matt. Matt,
Yeah.
Let's think ahead 5 years from now, because I know Jay's always plotting and planning. I mean, you mentioned Arnold, that Jay would be in that category as Arnold, 20 years from now. Does Jay have any aspirations to possibly, put out a show like Arnold does, like with a big expo and a big, huge prize money? Because I think, Chris and I are always talking about this on the radio, that there's just not enough big shows with with enough money. It seems like if anyone could make it happen with all their connections, and that Jay would be the guy to, maybe put out the first $1 million first prize, in a show. Is that something Jay's interested in doing, or can you see him doing that in the future?
I don't want to say yes or no, because he's got so much on his plate. I think if the right opportunity came in the right city, just everything would have to align. I think he would be open to it. But I know, with all the stuff he has going on right now, I just don't know if he could. If he was the band,
because you don't want another thing on your plate. But I'm sure Jay is probably in the back of his head saying, "Oh, that's a good idea."
I mean, I think we all wish he would, because next to Arnold, he's the next. The brand is right there.
I think he's the only one who could do it, to be honest with you, because with all his connections to people and companies, and I think he could do it. I think, and if he did it, I think it would change the scope of bodybuilding. Really,
Yeah, I mean, I'm never going to say never, but I think it's a possibility. I know it's not something he's looking at like right now. That's right now, him, but just like anything else with him, one day it might click and he'll say, "This is what I want to do," and if that's what he decides, it'll be the next biggest show out there.
Yeah. Right, I want to ask you guys one more thing, because people are always asking me this, and I know the answer to the question, but because Jay's a good marketer himself, would Jay ever make a comeback, or are these little transformations just kind of to promote his company?
I wish he would.
Dave wishes. Dave's all about it.
He's done. But you know what, though? It's funny, because I remember the last time he prepped in 2013, it took him a really long time for him to get back into the groove of competing. Like, he was telling me, we actually filmed his whole prep for that show. Moved to Vegas like half the time. I would do 3 days in Vegas, 3 days in Cali, and we would film every day to let people know, show what he was going through for his return. And it took him a really long time to get back into the groove and to actually just to get into the rhythm. And towards the end, he was getting there. So I wish he had actually more time in 2013 to do his return. But this year, it's funny, because as he's doing, the double cardio every day and double split training and eat his 6 meals and everything, he's actually really enjoying it. Like, he doesn't want to stop. Obviously, the goal is, August 3rd for his birthday. That's the deadline. But he's going to keep going after that, because I think he's really enjoying the process again, which I'm surprised. Yeah. So, yeah.
What Dave was saying there, he's not going to stop with the dieting. And he's like, I'm just going to keep at this. You can tell it motivates him more. He's never going to step back on stage again, because that Jay is gone. Right. But I can see him keeping his body weight where it's at and just staying in really good shape. We were in Mexico City this last weekend, and Dana Lynn Bailey was with us, and him and her posed. And I'm looking at these two, and I'm like, Jay's shredded. He's got all he still has the cross striations in his quads, but so does Dana. And here Dana's 40 and Jay's about to turn 50, and you can tell he just loves, just kind of like an athlete that just misses the behind the scenes stuff. He misses that camaraderie and stuff, but I don't ever see him jumping on stage again. But he did say he's going to take his shirt off at the Masters Olympia in Romania.
He said he would guest pose, Dave. He said he would actually guest pose.
That's a good idea. I told Lee Priest he should do that too. I said, Lee, I know your symmetry is a little off because you had the car accident. I said, just go guest pose. People want to see you. You're big. Kai Green too. Let him go guest pose all over. The guy is amazing.
Yeah. I was surprised he actually said that. I was like, really? Wow. Okay.
Matt, you ought to put together like a Legends guest posing tour or something like that. Get Kai, Jay, Lee Priest,
I would pay for that.
Phil's still in shape. Yeah.
I would pay more. I would pay for that before I pay to watch the Olympia, to be honest with you.
Oh, now we got something here. And Chris can diet all of them.
Well, we all want to just wish Jay Cutler a very happy 50th birthday. I know I went through that 5 years ago. It's a rough number when you first turn 50, but after that, it kind of was like, well, now I look really good for my age. So now I can get those compliments going. You guys want to say any final words to Jay? Let's start with you, Dave.
Nah, I just wanted to say thank you for having me on the show. I really appreciate it, and Jay really appreciates you, Chris. I know he's mentioned you countless time. He always has good things to say about you, and he's a happy dude. I think he's built something great for himself, and he really enjoys his life every day. So I appreciate being on the show today.
Thanks, Matt. You want to give him a happy birthday?
Also, same thing. Going to be good. We're going to be in Anaheim on his birthday.
That's right.
That's right. The Anaheim Fit Expo. So, thank you for having me on. It's a privilege because I don't look at Jay like other people, and I'm sure Chris and Dave are the same way. He's a close friend. He's not just the iconic bodybuilder, and just getting able to travel around the world with him and see how people react with him and see how many people love him. And I get to call this person a close personal friend that I speak to 2-3 times a day. Even while we're here, he's texting me he has no idea I'm doing a interview. But no, thank you for having us on. And I know Jay is on Thursday, he's going to appreciate all the love he's going to get online. And I know he's always said great things about Dave and Chris and you, Dave. And thank you for having me on.
Thank you. And Chris, you get the final word on the Jay Cutler 50th birthday celebration. If we can keep you on camera.
I'm still here.
All right. Give us the final word to Jay.
Okay, it's just enjoyable to sit back and watch his tremendous and remarkable success. It's that's it. It's because he's the type of person. He's the type of person.
You're talking to Jay right now. Say happy birthday to Jay. Talk to the camera like you're talking to Jay because he's going to be watching this on his 50th.
I already have secretly taped one, Dave, for him, so I don't want to.
I will give me another little one just so for the show.
Happy birthday, Jay! But the whole point is that it's and these guys here, nothing's better than to see someone who you respect and you like and you care about become remarkably successful. And Jay lifts up people around him. That's the last thing that I'll say about it. More important than happy birthday is Jay is a professional at lifting up people around him in every way you can think of what lift up means.
That's great. I want to just wish Jay a very happy 50th birthday. And I challenge you, Jay, out there. I'm going to challenge you. Maybe I should put my screen on so I can talk directly to Jay. I challenge you, Jay, to create an event that's going to be bigger than the Arnold, bigger than the Olympia, and it's going to give away the first $1 million first place prize to the winner. You can make it happen. I know you can do it. And you'll remind me of this show that I did on your 50th birthday. And I don't know when it's going to happen, a year, 2, 3, 4, 5 from now, but I know you're going to make it happen. Happy birthday, Jay. And thank you all for joining us. I'm Dave Palumbo with Dave Bourlet, Chris Aceto, and Matt Daniels. We'll see you next time.